This is going to be, I was a little ambitious this morning, I think, trying to go through all the 10 Commandments in the time I had. And as I talked to my wife, often she says, "You can't say anything in 5 minutes anymore. What were you thinking?" So I can't. Apparently I needed more time for that. But before getting into that, I'd like to go to Proverbs 1. Let's start there, because I think it's really important that we start in this Bible study. We go into Proverbs 1, and we tie a few things together because these things are intricately tied together. If we go to Proverbs 1, and this is a really great book for all young people, not just young people, but those not as young, let's just say, or those young at heart, to read, and to read often because it's full of wisdom. In Proverbs 1, verse 7, it says, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge." So, to have knowledge, or true knowledge, we have to have a proper reverence and fear of God. But fools despise wisdom and instruction. So, we have to fear God. Fearing God first is the way it starts. Turn to turn to Proverbs number 8. We'll go there. In verse 13. And I think this is equally important. It's the beginning of wisdom. It's the beginning of knowledge. Fear of the Lord, in verse 13, 8 verse 13, the fear of the Lord is to hate evil. To hate evil. The opposite of evil is good. God is good. The opposite of Him is evil. That's the devil. Pride and arrogancy, and the devil is certainly all of those, and the evil way, doing things contrary to the way God says to do them, and doing things the way that the devil says. And the froward mouth I do hate. Okay, so we see here that the fear of the Lord is to hate evil, to hate that way of life. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Now let's go back to Psalm 110, or 111. Let's go there. Psalm 111. And let's tie these things together, because that's what we're really talking about here, and what we're going to focus on for the rest of the evening, and what we've been focusing heavily on here at camp. Psalm 111, and in verse 10, we'll read it here. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. So not only is it the beginning of knowledge, it's the beginning of wisdom. What is wisdom? A simple way to think about it is, some people know what to do. Some people know when to do something. Few people can put together what to do and when to do it. And that's wisdom, knowing what to do and when to do it. It's a basic definition of wisdom. But the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. A good understanding have all they that do His commandments. His praise endures forever. And in my margin says, them that do them. So those that do them. Now back to Proverbs 14. So it starts with fear. It starts with a proper fear. It starts with a proper reverence for God. It starts with fearing God. And that leads you to wonder, hey, there is a God. There is a true God. We talked about that earlier this morning as we covered the first 4 commandments. There is a God that I know. I know there is a true God that created heaven and earth and all things, and who gives me life and breath and who sustains me. And that's the beginning. That's the beginning of knowledge. That's the beginning of wisdom. And a good understanding comes with what He said to do and how He said to live. Proverbs 14 in verse 26. And by knowing and understanding how He said to live, by doing His commandments, in the fear of the Lord is a strong confidence. We can know if we are practicing doing and living God's way of life, His laws, and doing the commandments in our life, living them, then we can have a strong confidence. and his children have a place of refuge. We have a safe place. The commandments, God, fearing him, it all ties together intricately, and it's perfect. It really, truly is. Now, this morning, we covered first 4 commandments. We covered, you shall have no other gods before me. We covered, you shall have, not bow down, worship any graven images, not taking the name of God in vain, and also keeping the Sabbath holy, and holy in the way that God wants it to be kept. And Mr. Scarborough, if you could please put back on, my one slide. That's my super technology right there. All these other guys with their wonderful slides, they're good. I came up with this, and I didn't even draw that one myself. Anyway, but it suits our purpose. So we've covered the first 4. And the first 4, as we've talked about earlier this week, and it's been covered in messages, the first 4 really show a reverence and a deep love towards, and are focused and centered on God. Keeping the commandments towards God, getting our God focus first, because that's where it must start. We're going to look at number 5 now, and number 5 up there, it says, honor your father and mother, that your days may be long upon the earth. So, for those that heard it this morning, I'd like you to think about the story that I opened with. That crazy story about Ronald Opus. Ask yourself, and I think you already know the answer, ask yourself, did he have honor for his father and his mother? I think the answer is obvious. And guess what? The promise that was supposed to come with it doesn't exist for that man, right? He tried to commit suicide, jumped from a 10-story building, got shot by a shotgun that he loaded because he was trying to take out his mother, because he knew that his father would point the gun at his mother from time to time. And he got shot with it. I think in some ways it's a fitting end to that story. But this is God's Word coming to life. This is the truth. And we all must honor our father and mother. We heard that earlier. I think Mr. Dixon gave a Christian living class about that earlier in this week, honor to whom honor is due. And he covered that. It's a wide swath. It doesn't just stop at mother and father. Think about grandparents and your grandmother, your grandfather. Oftentimes in the Bible, they'll use the words interchangeably, father and mother, and it's really a generation removed, and they still call them father, right? And so it's very important that we honor them, that we honor our parents. I did try to honor my dad and my mom as long as I possibly could, and sometimes I do pray for it. I mean, I'm not in perfect health, and I say to God, well, look, I tried to honor my parents as best I could. I wasn't perfect at it, but keep me alive longer. I want to see the kingdom. I want to be there when Christ returns. I want to be there, and I want to see others rise first, and I want to be then rising to meet Christ in the clouds. I want to be there for that. But that's not the way the world is today, is it? That's not the way the world is towards teachers. We heard about that. Towards employers, towards parents, towards grandparents. You hear all sorts of atrocities happening to people of age, senior citizens, for no good reason. Just because they're older, just because they have a hoary head. Proverbs 30. Let's go over there. Proverbs 30. And we'll start reading in verse 11. Because I think this is where we are. And you could couple this, and you could write down in your notes or in your margin with 2 Timothy 3 and verse 1 through 5. And I think they go hand in hand with one another. Proverbs 30, verse 11, it says, "There is a generation that curses their father and does not bless their mother. There is a generation that are pure in their own eyes, and yet is not washed from their filthiness." I see it. I'm sure you do as well. A generation that curses their father and does not bless their mother. Look at it in TV shows. Look at it on sitcoms or on commercials or movies. Over the last several decades, the dad has become the oaf who doesn't know what to do. He just sits around with his shirt and his belly sticking out and his hand down the front of his pants and get me a beer, and that's all he does. That's all he can do. It's not wrong to sit on the sofa and have a beer. It's not wrong to have somebody get you a beer. That's not what I'm talking about. I enjoy that too from time to time. But that's the way it's portrayed, and that's the extent of the husband's or the father's ability, right? And there is a generation that does not bless their mother. There's many, many kids. I mean, you can go 6 miles from here and walk into the largest grocery store / store chain in America, and you can hear the children that are not blessing their mother as their mother is trying to get through the checkout. I mean, we've all been there, we've all heard it, we've all seen it. And that's just where we are in this day and age. It says in verse 13, there is a generation, oh, how lofty are their eyes, and their eyelids are lifted up. There is a generation whose teeth are as swords, and their jaw teeth as knives, to devour the poor from off the earth and the needy from among men. And our teenagers, those young people who are sitting here in the front rows, interact with those people. Of course, we hope and pray that none of our young people are those people, and I don't think that any of them are. None of the people that I've met here are those people. But they interact with those people on a regular basis. They share classrooms with them. They share sports teams with them. They share clubs with them. They share time with them. And that's what's going on in the world around us. It seems everybody goes through a phase in their life as teens. I went through that phase where we kind of dislike, or not necessarily even dislike, but disassociate from our parents a little bit. Like, kind of like, Dad, you're cramping my style. Like, get away, okay? I got girls to look at over here. I remember that when I was, about your age, about 15 or 16. I said, Dad, can you just walk behind me, okay? We're going at the mall at the feast. And I'm like, Dad, you got to walk behind me, okay, please. This is not cool, We all go through that phase. I remember doing it myself. But by the time I finished high school and was into college and was going through college and maturing an adult place in my life, I started to realize something. I started to realize that all those friends that I sort of wanted to have my parents disassociate from me were kind of going away or fading away. And I started to realize, I'm an only child, but I started to realize, hey, the only people I really have are my parents. These are the ones that are going to be there. They've always been there. When I broke my arm, when I broke my leg, when I needed this, when I needed help, when I was feeling down. Everybody has those days. And no matter what age we become, we never stop being parents. And you'll understand that one day, young people, yourself. You never stop being a parent. My dad never stopped being a parent to me, and I miss him. And, all of us here who are parents, because there's many parents here that have come to camp to try to help and serve and be there and, be involved in your life, they're around you here. They care just as much about all those things, and they will always be there for you, no matter what, through thick and through thin. And you will have friends that you're developing here who will stick with you through thick and through thin. So it's very important to honor your parents. They do put in the time, they put in the effort, and they put in the sacrifice for all of you. And it goes for any of us who are adults. Always remember your parents. We try to go and visit family of in-laws every year as much as we can. They're 27 hours away by car, so it's kind of difficult from time to time, but we try to get there because we know they're getting older. So never stop doing that. My dad became one of my very best friends in my adult years until he died. And we did all sorts of stuff together as a family. We had camping and movies nights, and we had feasts together. And many of your parents here want to do those exact same things and are doing those exact same things with you. The world around you is not doing that. Ask yourself, is it better to keep the commandments and have that around you? Or is it better to do what other people are doing? All right, let's move on. We got a few more to get through. And I only have a limited amount of time, and we're not coming back for another one. Okay. Exodus 20:13, it says, "You shall not kill" in the King James, but the word is probably better translated murder. You shall not murder. Okay, we know that. We're not going to go and premeditatedly grab a knife or a gun and run over to somebody that we're angry with and shoot them in the face. We got the minis did some really nice artwork for all the staff. I don't know. Did anybody in the staff? Just show of hands for those that are in the staff. Did the minis send you guys artwork as well? Yeah, really cute artwork. We got one, and I remember looking at it. I was like, "What's that?" And I'm like, "Oh, that's murder. You shall not murder." And I went, "Oh, there's a sword going right into this other stick man." And I can't remember which one drew it, but I was like, "Yeah, we shouldn't do that. That's really good. We're not going to do that." But I think that that's really obvious for all of us, right? Even the world says, "Hey, don't murder." Our government, still currently, for the most part, says you shouldn't murder. Now, they have a specific take on those in the womb who are defenseless that we disagree with strongly. Abortion, it's wrong, it's murder. The world doesn't see it that way, but it is. But they say you can't just go over to your neighbor and shoot them in the face if you have a disagreement. And of course, we're not going to do that. But there's more to it than that, right? There's more to it than that. In 2022, Pew, a big famous research company, a report came out on cyberbullying. This is something I hear about every year. Cyberbullying Research Center indicates that at least 46%, or almost half of 13 to 17-year-olds, were victims of cyberbullying. Now that's, generally speaking, this crowd of people that are sitting right in front of me for those of you at home. And I don't think it's going to be on the camera, and you feel free not to, but if you have been cyberbullied, I would like to see if you have. So raise your hands if you have been cyberbullied by anybody. And don't be afraid to, if it's in the back and you're over the age of 13 to 17, it's fine. There are people out there that cyberbully people. And it's serious, it's real. People bully other people. Right? And it causes a lot of problems. Other studies say that up to 75% of people are cyberbullied. That's offensive name calling. Okay, that's considered cyberbullying. False rumors about somebody, so spreading a false text or false rumor. Explicit messaging, you know what that is. Being harassed, threatened, sexual harassment, all of those things. It's a totally new phase. It's not the schoolyard, bully that it used to be. Now that we have technology in our hands all the time, it's instantaneous, and it goes across schools sometimes. 2, 3, 4 schools, cross states. On the converse, 11.5%, or about 1 in 8 students between 12 and 17 indicated that they had engaged in cyberbullying. So it's not just people that are getting bullied, it's people that are doing it. And this led to an increase in suicides amongst teenagers by 1/5. So cyberbullying, or this bullying, a lot of people laugh at bullying. It's not something to be really laughed at because this is what's happening. This is the cause of it. Think of the mind behind it, right? It's causing suicidal behavior to increase by 1/5. 20% of all students in a study of over 437,000 students thought of suicide in the last 30 days. 20%. Your lives are way too young. You're way too short in life to be thinking about suicide. All these people that are getting bullied. It's horrible. Tennessee actually just introduced a new law and if it passes, it would that anyone caught bullying would actually lose their driver's license. So they're trying to curb it. It's become such an epidemic or a pandemic in certain ways on the internet and in the mobile world that they're thinking of bringing laws into place to stop it. Matthew 5. Let's go there. Because murder is not just killing somebody. It's assassinating their character, who they are. And Christ made that pretty plain. In Matthew 5:21 and verse 22, we'll read those. It says, "You have heard that it was said by of old time, you shall not kill, or you shall not murder. Whoever you shall murder shall be in danger of the judgment. But I say to you that whoever is angry with his brother without a cause shall be in danger of the judgment." Now, many of these bullying incidents happen because somebody is angry with somebody. Oftentimes they don't have a cause. "And whoever shall say to his brother, Raca, shall be in danger of the council, but whosoever shall say, you fool, shall be in danger of hellfire." It's talking about, like, you're worthless. You're useless. You're a fool. You're dumb. God takes those things really seriously. Christ magnified it and said, this is murder. You're basically telling my creation there's no point for them to be here when I want them to be in my kingdom. Who are you to say that? Who am I to say that? I don't know. But human beings do that. We cannot give the devil any room to maneuver. Ephesians 4, verse 26. Let's look at that. Let's go there. We must not give the devil any room to maneuver. Ephesians 4 and verse 26 says, "Be you angry." So you're allowed to be angry. You have to control your anger. Controlling anger is a subject in and of itself. It's a difficult thing to do. For some more than others. I understand that. "Be you angry and sin not. Let not the sun go down upon your wrath. Neither give place to the devil." In our house, we kind of always said, don't ever go to bed. Don't ever go to sleep angry. Let's resolve it before we go to sleep. There are times people get angry with one another. And I would say that's a good thing. That's just what we do. But don't let the sun go down on your wrath. Don't go to sleep angry. Because if you do, you're in danger of keeping a grudge. And that can be very, very dangerous. And that's what's happening. That's what happens in the world. You see it all over the place. And you're going to go back to that. We're all going to go back to that. We've been here for a lovely 12 days, away from the world, away from the influences that we normally have on an everyday basis, together. Sure, there's minor disputes here and there. We work through them. But in the world, it's much more difficult to work through these disputes. You're up against it. We're up against it. We're up against some pretty spiritual wickedness in some pretty high places. And this is the devil's society. This is his world. And he's the prince of the power of the air. And he controls thoughts and attitudes. And certainly, he was a murderer from the very beginning. We know that. He was a liar and a murderer. And we'll get to the lying part soon. And this is something he projects all over the place. Okay, number 7. We go through the commandments. We're working through them here. You shall not... you shall not commit adultery. There we go. Read me your Roman numerals. Okay. Exodus 20, verse 14. You shall not commit adultery. Since we're in Matthew, or we were in Matthew, just turn back there to Matthew 5. And adultery is, infidelity within marriage. But it's not just that. Matthew 5 and verse 27, you have heard that it was said by them of old time that you shall not commit adultery. But I say to you that whoever looks on a woman or a man to lust after her has committed adultery with her already in his heart. So the law is magnified here. God is magnifying the law, Jesus Christ, magnifying the law, filling it up, saying if you look at somebody and you're lusting after them, you're committing adultery already in your heart. It's not just the act, the physical act. And boy, oh boy, think about where we are in this world. You know, hate to say it, but again, you can go back to your phone. I'm not saying that phones are evil. Sometimes they can be evil, used for evil, and sometimes they can be used for good. Just like everything else that seems to be in this world, right? Since the two trees. Think about this. Not only do we keep the letter of the law, but the spirit. We're supposed to keep the spirit. What about other forms of sexual perversion? This is what Christ was getting at here. This LGBTQAAIP plus thing that's going on, that happened last month. You know, they call them lesbian, gay, bi, trans, queer, questioning, asexual, ally, pansex, confused. They're just confused. That's all it is. You know, 95% of kids, 95% of people are exposed to pornography. 95% before the age of 18. 95%. The first exposure among boys is 12 years old. On average, 73% consume pornography. So that 95% haven't just seen it, 73% consume it. 45% believe it gives helpful information about relations. 52% have watched even the violent portion of it. I mean, it's getting worse and worse and worse. This is what our kids, this is what teenagers, this is what you're up against. And I bring these to light, like I said this morning, so that we can all, in your support group, your parents, as your congregation, the relatives, we can support you in knowing these things, to read these things, to look and research these things, and to put them down on paper. It just blew my mind. I started to think, that's sad. That's really gross. Like, we are living in the time of Sodom and Gomorrah. This is that time. These statistics show you that. It was perverse then. It's horribly perverse now, and at the touch of your finger. And we're here learning to fear God and to keep His commandments, because this is our duty. And part of the commandments is this, and we have to be fighting up against this. This is a difficult fight. This is really difficult. You know, pornography affects your brain in 3 ways, and this has been extensively studied because they've done studies on how addictive it is. It's like heroin. It's as addictive as meth for the brain. But this is what it does. Number 1, your brain gets tattooed. Images never leave. So those images that are seen or never leave. Your brain chemicals chemically tattoo those images because it produces such a strong emotion and a strong feeling. That feeling that God has put in us for good between a husband and a wife later on in life, but it's very strong for that strong bond and that strong connection that husbands and wives should have. But that's what pornography does. It tattoos an image in your brain that never leaves, or takes a long time to get out. Brains end up bonding to images, not people. This is where the addiction comes in. They bond to images, not people, the way God intended. Instead of forming a deep connection with a person, humans bond with an experience in the image. And number 3, physically, it shrinks your brain. So it makes your brain smaller. The area that controls your willpower. Just think about that one thing, just willpower. Everything that you need with God's help working with you, with the Spirit working with you, and then your part, or our part, it shrinks, which makes doing this much, much more difficult every time. That's what happens. This is why God says in 1 Corinthians 6:18, let's turn there, 1 Corinthians 6:18. 1 Corinthians 6:18 says, flee fornication. Every sin that a man does is outside the body, but he that commits fornication sins against his own body. See, God knew this way back when, before these studies were done that talk about it, tattooing images that never leave, shrinking your brain, the place where your willpower is, bonding to images rather than persons and experiences rather than persons. God knew this. He said, flee. This is a sin against yourself. You're hurting yourself. He didn't say just sort of turn, walk away. He said turn and run, flee, get out. So our young people, all of us, truly, we need to flee. This is what you're up against. If 95% are exposed to it, you can be sure that our young people have been exposed to it. I'm not naive. Okay? Whether it was voluntarily or involuntarily. It's just everywhere. It permeates everywhere. We have to accept the reality, but we have to flee from it. You know, this is over the time that I've been in the church, this is, I would say, the number one thing that takes teenagers out of the church, that doesn't get them to the next phase, which we all hope. This is the number one thing. Somebody somewhere else, occasionally somebody in the church, but somebody somewhere else takes them out. Why? Because of this strong emotion. Fornication. And it's all covered by adultery. This is why God says, don't do it. Don't involve yourself in it. Don't look at it. Don't be a part of it. Get away from it. Get away from it. Because He wants the very best for each and every one of us. Stealing. Number 8. You shall not steal. That's Exodus 20, verse 15. If you're at home tuning in, Exodus 20, verse 15 says, you shall not steal. According to a recent survey, 70% of high schoolers admit to cheating on assignments and tests. And 56% multiple times. How many teens in this room go to public school? Raise your hand. How many know somebody that cheats? Exactly. You know, I teach at high school. I know how much cheating goes on. I don't even know how much cheating goes on. I see a lot of it. I catch a lot of it. I do my best to stop a lot of it. But that's stealing a grade that does not belong to you, that you never earned. It's stealing. It's stealing grades. And there's lots, and frankly what ends up happening is kids that want to go to school and they want to go to college. College now costs a lot of money, and it steals scholarship money because they got false grades. So it's actually stealing money from somebody else who deserves it. And that's what's going on around us. You know, stealing grades. How many people have witnessed somebody cheating in the room when they're testing work? Exactly. It happens so often. And the pressure is so real. Because you don't want to get, bullied. Or you don't want to get assassinated by your character earlier, right? We talked about that in murder. So if you go and tell on somebody, next thing you know, everybody's texting about who snitched on them, and then you get character assassinated. That's what happens. That's the way sin works. It just one begets another, it begets another, it begets another. This is why God said it's so important to fear Him and to keep His commandments. That's our whole duty. That's what completes us. That's what gets us to the end of where we need to be. You know, people that cheat are twice as likely to lie or deceive their boss, or to lie about the address to get a child into a better school. 29% of people that are regular cheaters lie to get their kid into a better school. 20% of people deceive their bosses. And 1.5 times more likely to lie to their spouse or significant other. It just begets itself. It's one after another. Or cheat on their taxes. You know, I'll tell a little story. My son, my oldest boy, he was at school this year and last year, right? English. It was last year. He got into something Or I'm sitting at school and I get this text from this teacher saying, your son was caught in academic dishonesty. And, your eyes will, oh, what? My kid? What? Well, it turns out I got a text from Jacob about 20 seconds after I read that saying, no, Dad, it wasn't me. I'm okay. Because I'm thinking, no way. I had already started writing an email. No way my son had done this. And I was right, thankfully. I know my boy, thankfully. But what happened was, he did a project, there was a whole bunch of group work, and everybody just took his stuff and word for word submitted it as their stuff. And he had to fight with the teacher for a while to prove his point. And the way you can do it is because you have electronic prints, right? Like when did this get created, under whose email address and under whose ID did this happen? And he was able to prove this, and his teacher sort of went, okay, yeah. You're the one that did the work. Everybody else cheated. But that's happening. It's prevalent. So I encourage you young people to stick up for yourselves in that regard. And, God will see you through it. There was a time, I'm sure, he was sweating bullets. And God saw him through it because he did the right thing. I just used that one example. The devil is a thief and a robber. And he inspires his servants to do so. All right, the 9th one. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. Okay? We are lied to, on average, 200 times a day. It's probably increasing. Children begin lying at the age of 6 months of age. Hard to believe, but it's true. Kids lie they begin lying at 6 months of age. Younger Americans are more likely to mislead insurers intentionally or otherwise. 39% of millennials auto insurance policyholders admit to using deceptive tactics to save money on their insurance. Millennials' most common tactics are using another person's address to get a rate, reporting their vehicle as stolen just to get the cash when it hasn't been stolen, or not reporting all the people who drive their car to save money, and reporting they use their vehicle less than they do. So I just take it from here to here. Just think about this. How easy is it to lie online? Think about that. Think about those people that are online lying about themselves, lying about their persona, lying about who they are. And then, you get some of these people who are even more dastardly. If they play video games from a distance and they're just on, and they're on some game and it's over the internet, and you just get on the game with somebody, they pretend that they're a young person. And they say, hey, do you want to meet? Do you want to meet somewhere? Do you want to go here? Do you want to go there? And I know someone who went here and went there, and they later found this someone, we were living in Ohio, and they later found this someone on his way to Chicago, because they got fooled. And turns out it was some 38-year-old creep that was trying to get this 14-year-old boy to come to his house. Disgusting. John 8. Let's turn there. I'm presenting you all the things that are happening around in the world. I hate to give you this stark reality, but the reality is we're all going back into the world from this camp in not too many days. And we got to remember, and we got to be warned, and we got to know what we're up against. We also have to know what the good is about keeping God's commandments, what the good side of it is. And we're going to get to that. John 8, verse 32. And you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. The truth sets you free. Proverbs 12. The truth always sets you free. That is an absolute fact. From God's mouth, recorded by John, but it is an absolute fact. Proverbs 12, verse 19 says, the lip of truth shall be established forever, but a lying tongue is for a moment. People of the truth are established forever. Never forget that. It will set you free, no matter what. When I was your age, my dad told me, and we have told the same thing to our children, the truth always protects you, no matter what thing you might have done wrong. Come and tell the truth. Because if you tell the truth, just like God does, I can show mercy. But if you lie to me after you've done the thing that's wrong, it makes it a lot harder for me as a parent to show mercy. And it makes it a lot harder for God to do the same thing. Because He knows you're lying to Him. And so the truth always, always protects us. No matter how terrible anything you get into, always tell the truth. Keeping the commandments keeps you. It allows for mercy. It keeps us. It keeps all of us. The last one on the list, number 10, is you shall not covet anything that is your neighbor's. Not your neighbor's wife, or his manservant, his maidservant, not his ox, his donkey, or anything that is your neighbor's. You know, when we live in an age where people mark their entire existence on the things that they gather, right? The things that they gather. 1 John 2, and you don't have to turn there, in verse 15 it says, love not the world, neither the things that are in the world. Because they all pass away eventually. They're not of the Father. They're not of God. He made certain things. We can enjoy certain things. But guess what? When we die, none of it comes with us. Somebody else inherits it. Somebody else takes it. Somebody else wastes it. It's used for somebody else. All the things that we gathered. And this world is about gathering stuff. It's like, how much can I get before I die? That's what everybody wants to do. I mean, think about where we are when it comes to this age. We have billionaires that are worth what are they? Worth $35 trillion. There was an article that came out recently that billionaires, this group of billionaires, the world's richest billionaires, gained in wealth $6.5 trillion. I mean, think about that. I mean, they could, just spread $1 million around for everybody a little bit. I could use it. Anybody else want $1 million? Yeah. Well, exactly. Right. I guess you guys all have an extra $1 million. Interesting. I would, look. These guys, it said, could end world hunger 22 times over with their extra money. Yet they keep accumulating billions and billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars till it piles up into the trillions. It's shocking how many things they want to have. But your life does not consist, happiness and success does not consist on how much we obtain, and how much we have and keep. Turn to 1 Timothy 6. 1 Timothy 6, in verse 6, it says, but godliness with contentment is great gain. So 1 Timothy 6 is saying, hey, fear God and keep the commandments. That's your whole duty. Be godly and be content with what you've been given. It's got great gain. For we brought nothing into the world, and it's certain that we can carry nothing out. Having food and raiment, let us be therewith content. And some of the happiest people I've ever met in third world countries, they have nothing. They live on dirt floors. They got 5 people in a room that's 800 square feet, and they go from meal to meal, from day to day, and it's pretty basic and meager. And they're some of the happiest people on the planet. They're so grateful for everything that they have. And here we are in America where we have everything. We're celebrating the 4th of July, right? We have this wonderful nation and these wonderful blessings, and it's all because of one man that we have these blessings, and we're the recipients of it. We just happen to be born in the right place and of the right lineage, or migrate to the right place and take part in these wonderful blessings. No matter what state we are in, we can be content. It's hard to be content in this world because the devil doesn't want anybody to be content. He wants you to get and get and get and get and get more and more and more. And that's what they program in schools. That's what kids attain to. I ask kids every year, what do you want to be? And I want to be an influencer. I want to be a YouTuber. And they look at, I teach math, and they look at math and they say, well, what's the point of this? But some of these people these influencers are making like $25, $26, $28 million a year. And all they do is dumb little things with their phone in front of people and show them all the stupid things that happen in their lives. I mean, I got a lot of stupid stuff that happens in my life. How come I'm not rich? I'm sure you could say the same. I guess it's just because I don't record it and put it on. I probably wouldn't influence anybody anyway. All right. Well, we've talked about the bad side of things. We've talked about the things that you're up against. We've talked about, what happens when you don't keep the commandments. But let's talk a little bit, and let's kind of flip the page and talk about the good things that happen. Number one, for the first commandment, you shall have no other gods before me. You will begin to see and understand your awesome potential. 1 John 3. 1 John 3. I added to this, so if you're thinking, man, you would never have had a chance getting through this in the morning. What were you thinking? I know my wife's probably thinking that. I did add a little bit to it over the course of the day. 1 John 3 and verse 2, it says, Beloved, now we are the sons of God, and it does not yet appear what we shall be, but we know that when He shall appear, we shall be like Him, for we shall see Him as He is. We are made in the image and after the likeness of the living God, the God who created life and breath and the universe and all things that are in it. And one day we're going to get to see Him face to face because we are going to be just like Him. Not just an image, not just a likeness, but just like Him as Spirit. That's amazing. And that comes from knowing and understanding who that true God is. Because that's what He's doing. That's what He's doing. He's creating a family so that He can have more in His God family. Joshua, the 24th chapter. Let's turn there. Joshua 24 and verse 14. Joshua 24 and verse 14 says, Now therefore, fear the Lord and serve Him in sincerity and in truth, and put away the gods which your fathers served on the other side of the flood and in Egypt, and serve the Eternal. God wants us to serve Him in sincerity and truth, and to put away all those other gods, all those things that take the distractions and time. And by serving God, we will be serving Him sincerely and in truth, because He's the only God of truth. No wooden statue, no sports icon, no TikTok influencer, no politician, no doctor, no lawyer are worthy of being worshipped in sincerity and in truth. Not one of them, because not one of them is sincere enough or truthful enough. When we know the true God, we know how to worship Him, and we can worship Him with sincerity, with clarity, in the light, and in truth, because He's the only God of truth. Revelation 3, let's go there. When we keep God's name holy, He doesn't hold it against us. And when we're keeping His commandments, all of them, and He doesn't hold it against us, in verse 12 it says, To him that overcomes the world and overcomes the influence of trying to break all of God's commandments and not to fear Him that overcomes, I will make a pillar in the temple of my God, and he shall go out no more. And I will write upon him the name of my God. The name of God. inheriting the name of my God and the name of the city of my God, which is New Jerusalem, which comes down out of heaven from my God. And I will write upon him my new name. If we keep God's name holy, He promised us to give us a holy name of our own, a part of His. If we respect His name, He promises to take us and keep us in His name and make us part of His name going forward and forevermore. Number 4, Hebrews 4. Physical rest comes from the Sabbath. I'm sure we all appreciate it, everyone here at camp. And those out there in the world working. You have busy lives. We have busy lives. Hebrews 4 and verse 3. We appreciate the rest. God gives us the seventh day. Our physical bodies need rest. There's many studies that show we need rest at least one day a week to be in good health. But not only that, if we just can keep God's Sabbath as well as the other ones that we're talking about here. Hebrews 4 and verse 3. For we, which have believed, do enter into rest, as He said, as I have sworn in my wrath, if they shall enter into my rest, although the works were finished from the foundation of the world. We can enter into that final rest, the kingdom of God. The rest from the devil, the rest from the world and the influence that pushes against us, that makes us slip up from time to time. We can get there. Fear God and keep His commandments. This is what completes us. This is the end game. With Christ's help, through His sacrifice, we can get there. Ephesians 6, verse 1 through 3. This is the fifth commandment, obeying your parents. The transitional commandment, really, obeying your parents and obeying God, your Father. Long life. Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with promise, that it may be well with you and you may live long on the earth. And I'm sure, however much time there is, we want to live long on the earth. Nobody wants to die. God's put eternity in our heart. It says that in Ecclesiastes. Keeping God's commandment, honoring your parents, gives you long life. I mean, that's a promise. That's a guarantee from God. Number 6, do not murder. We value human life, not just generally, but every single individual life. If you value everybody else's life, you'll begin to see how others have other special gifts and talents that you do not have, that I do not have. And I've seen a ton of them during camp. I mean, we saw a bunch last night, for those of us who are not performing. You know, from card tricks, which I can't do. I thought those were pretty cool. To singing. All of it. I've seen other talents, speaking talents that we've seen. Song leading talents. I've seen talents on the softball field. I've seen talents in the football field. I've seen talents everywhere. Philippians 2:3, it says, let nothing be done through strife or vainglory, but in lowliness of mind esteem each other better than themselves. If we keep this commandment, we start to see other people as valuable. Really valuable the way God sees them. And we esteem them and treat them with that value. That makes our lives a lot easier. It helps calm disputes, anything that we get into with one another. Number 7, what happens? What are the benefits if we do not commit adultery? Titus 1 and verse 15. You can just write these down and go look them up later. That's fine. Titus 1 verse 15 says, unto the pure all things are pure, but unto them that are defiled and unbelieving is nothing pure, but even their mind and conscience is defiled. You can stay pure. How rare it is to see young people pure in this day and age. Think of how God looks at purity. He wants His bride, those of us who have been baptized and are part of the body of Christ, and you guys eventually, soon, He wants you to be part of that bride, wearing white, purity, unblemished, unspotted from the world. He wants us all to be pure. Purity is valuable to God. You know, we value purity in metals. We value purity in gems. And we are precious metals and precious gems to God. And if you do not tattoo things into your brain, you will have a happier, stronger bond with your spouse. You will have a happier, longer-lasting marriage. You will be truly one flesh together, as God intended from the very beginning. And that will lead to a happier family, which God is all about. Happy families. Just with that one command. Just with that one thing. Just with fleeing that fornication. Number 8. Shall not steal. Psalm 119, 165. Great peace have they which love your law, and nothing will offend them. You'll have peace of mind. You won't have a guilty conscience. God says in Matthew, we've heard it earlier this week, it says, "Well done, you good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a few things," in chapter 25. "I will make you ruler over many things. Enter into the joy of the Lord." If we're faithful in these little things, cheating, let's just say, what's going on all around us, and not bowing down into that temptation. If we can prevent ourselves, fight against that, think about that. Those little things count huge to God, and He'll make us rule over much. And there's joy to be had with it. There's peace because of no conscience problems, and then there's joy. So who doesn't want peace and joy rather than worry, angst, and argument, or lack of peace, anxiousness? Number 9. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor, or lying, in short. Jeremiah 17:9 says, "Naturally we are liars to ourselves. We're deceitful above all things, our natural mind, and desperately wicked. Who can know it?" We'll begin to see ourselves the way God sees us. And what He sees and what He wants for us is found in Ezekiel 36:26. Because this is what you, young people, have access to now. In the near future, others in the world will have access to this, because God wants all men to be saved and come to the knowledge of the truth. He's not willing that any should perish. We know about these scriptures. In Ezekiel 36, verse 26, it says, "A new heart also will I give to you, and a new spirit will I put within you, and I will take out the stony heart of your flesh, and I will give you a heart of flesh." That's what you have access to, growing up in this way, sanctified through your parents, young people. You have access to this. You have access to receive this, to take hold of this calling and have this new heart put into you. A heart that doesn't lie to itself. A heart that's truthful, and it's not desperately wicked. Luke 16, verse 13. We're going to begin to wrap up here. Luke 16 and verse 13 says, "No servant can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other." There's kind of no two ways about it. When God says, "You shall not covet anything," you cannot serve two masters. Either you will love one or hate the other, or else he will hold to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and mammon. You can only have one master. In 1 Timothy 6, verse 10,
said, it's a Bible study, so you can write these down and just turn to them later on your own if you want to, or tomorrow morning. 1 Timothy 6:10, it says, "For the love of money is a root of all evil." It's not wrong to have money. We all need money to function in this world. But it can be a root of all evil, which some coveted after, which is what's going on in the world around us, and they have erred from the faith. What it'll do is it'll take you out of God's way. Be content. Learn to be content with what you're given. Everything that we have is a gift from God. He owns everything. The gold and the silver is His. The entire earth and its fullness is His. They have erred from the faith and pierced themselves through with many sorrows. People with too much money get themselves into problems. Look at Solomon's life. The guy who wrote this, after 12 chapters of telling you he had everything under the sun, all things, he allowed himself to fall into forgetting about God. He worshipped false gods. He took God's name in vain. He was the king of Israel. God's kingdom, God's people. He broke the Sabbath. He worshipped other gods. He dishonored his dad David, who was a man after God's own heart. God had him build the temple, not his father David. He dishonored him. He hurt himself. He tried wine. He did that. He tried women. He did that. He had multiple wives, hundreds of wives and concubines. Broke the seventh command. How was that? I'm sure he had lots of discussions, and I'm sure there was lots of strife. He took wealth from people, as a king would. He took it to himself. He built himself a grand palace. He deceived himself that this was okay. He had obtained all the wealth known to mankind at that time. Yet, he eventually came to one conclusion. And I hope at the end of his life he turned it around. I don't know. But he says, let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep His commandments, for this is the whole duty of man, or this is the whole man. This is what makes the man whole. For God shall bring every work into judgment and every secret thing, and there's a lot of secret things happening. I told you some of them today on this earth, and we got to avoid them. And we're doing a good job. I know being here, you want to avoid these things. It's a struggle sometimes to avoid them. Know that it's okay from time to time, if you young people, if they happen to you. You always have a way back. Never, ever, ever forget that. Remember, you got one foot in God's hand and one foot in Jesus Christ's hand. If you jump out, that's your choice. But if you don't jump out, they will uphold you. They will help you. They will lift you up. They will keep you. Hold on to that. In the end, it's your choice to make. Do you want to have a happy, full, abundant, successful, conscious, free life? Do we want to end up in a messed up situation like the one I read earlier today? Ronald Opus. Decide now to keep the commandments, knowing that they will keep you. The commandments keep you from all sorts of messed up stuff. Do it because they bring blessings. They lead to greater blessings later. They lead to blessings now in this life. You'll be successful. You can write down Deuteronomy 28, 1 through 5 if you want to read some more blessings. Deuteronomy 28, 1 through 5. Do it because they bring blessings. Do it because you want to. Not just because you have to. We have to keep the commandments. But we, after listening to everything I've talked about here tonight and today, should want to keep God's commandments. Because they bring happiness, long life, and frankly, that's what the world tomorrow is going to bring. It's going to be a wonderful world where everyone keeps the commandments, regardless, because they have to. But guess what? It's going to be so awesome. They're just going to want to. And we hope you have that choice and take that choice now.
For more information, go to our website at cogassembly.org. Copyright 2025, Church of God Assembly. All rights reserved.